It's all about.
Oh, beautifully measured.
Well, come back, the atmosphere inside the stadium was unlike anything anyone expected that day, because this was not supposed to be a headline-stealing clash, not a match that would send shockwaves through an entire nation, and certainly not the kind of battle that would dominate global tennis conversations. Yet from the very first warm-up rally, it became clear that something extraordinary was unfolding as Alex Eala stepped onto the court with fearless eyes and calm determination to face the formidable world number 3, Elena Rybakina, a player whose power, poise, and Grand Slam pedigree had made her a symbol of pride across Kazakhstan and a nightmare opponent for anyone standing across the net. And while on paper this matchup seemed almost predictable, with rankings, experience, and physical dominance leaning heavily toward Rybakina, sport has never been played on paper. It has always been played in moments, in belief, in courage under pressure, and from the opening serve Eala showed. She was not there to admire her opponent but to challenge her, absorbing the early thunder of Rybakina's booming serves that sliced through the air like warning shots, returning them deep with precision that forced extended rallies that began to test not just physical endurance, but mental stability, because every extra ball sent back by the young Filipina was a quiet statement that she would not be bullied, would not be rushed, would not surrender to reputation. And as games ticked by, the crowd shifted from polite anticipation to stunned attention, sensing that the expected script was being rewritten point by point as Eala mixed heavy topspin with sudden changes of direction, dragging the tall Kazakh star into uncomfortable movement patterns, exposing subtle cracks that rarely appear in Rybakina's usually ice-cold composure. And when the first real turning point arrived in the form of a marathon rally that stretched beyond 20 strokes, each shot heavier than the last, each angle sharper, it was Eala who dared to redirect down the line with fearless conviction, painting the sideline and freezing the stadium in disbelief, because that was not the shot of an overwhelmed underdog, that was the strike of someone who believed she belonged. And from that instant the energy shifted palpably as whispers grew louder, as cameras zoomed closer, as Kazakhstan's confident expectation turned into anxious hope. And while Rybakina attempted to reassert control with signature power, hammering forehands and stepping inside the baseline to shorten points, she found herself forced into longer exchanges by Eala's court intelligence, the younger player reading patterns, anticipating serves, neutralizing first-strike tennis with remarkable composure for her age. And with every hold of serve, the belief in her box grew stronger, her body language radiating calm defiance rather than nervous excitement, revealing the maturity of a competitor who had prepared meticulously for this opportunity, studied tendencies, rehearsed scenarios, visualized pressure moments, and as the set tightened, the psychological tension became almost visible, hanging above the court like a storm cloud waiting to burst. Because Rybakina was no stranger to high stakes, having conquered the grass of Wimbledon and battled the world's elite on the biggest stages. Yet this was different. This was a match where she was expected to dominate, where the burden of expectation weighed heavier than the freedom of pursuit, and that subtle dynamic gave Eala a priceless advantage: the liberty to swing freely, to risk boldly, to treat each break point not as a threat but as an invitation. And when she finally converted one with a blistering backhand return that forced an error, the gasp from the stands echoed louder than any cheer, signaling that the narrative was truly tilting. And although Rybakina responded like a champion, digging deep, raising her first serve percentage, striking aces that momentarily silenced momentum, the consistency of Eala's resistance refused to fade, her footwork light and relentless, her defense transforming into sudden offense in a blink, and the scoreboard, once expected to tell a simple story, now reflected a dogfight that had captivated even neutral observers. Social media lighting up with disbelief as fans around the world tuned in to witness what was rapidly becoming one of the most compelling clashes of the season. And as the match extended into its decisive phase, the emotional stakes intensified, every changeover an opportunity for recalibration, every deep breath a reset button against mounting pressure. And in those final games, the contrast between established power and emerging fearlessness became poetic, Rybakina's strokes still heavy but now tinged with urgency. Eala's shots still sharp but now fueled by the intoxicating possibility of history. And when match points surfaced, the air felt almost unbreathable, the crowd leaning forward. Collectively, phones raised, hearts pounding, because sport at its highest level distills into singular moments where legacy and opportunity collide. And on that defining rally, it was once again Eala who trusted her instincts, absorbing pace before unleashing a daring change of direction that clipped the line with ruthless precision, sealing not just a point but a seismic statement that reverberated far beyond the baseline, prompting stunned silence followed by explosive reaction. As commentators scrambled for words and Kazakhstan grappled with disbelief, while Rybakina, ever composed, approached the net with dignified acknowledgement of a battle fiercely contested. Yet even in defeat, her expression hinted at surprise at the resistance she had faced, and for Eala the victory represented more than an upset. It symbolized arrival, validation of years of disciplined training, sacrifices made away from headlines, hours spent refining mechanics, strengthening mindset, sharpening tactical awareness. And as she raised her arms in restrained celebration, the image traveled instantly across continents, inspiring young athletes who saw in her triumph proof that rankings are not destiny, that courage can compress experience gaps, that preparation can destabilize even the most formidable opponents. And analysts quickly began dissecting what had unfolded, noting how Eala's return positioning disrupted Rybakina's rhythm, how her willingness to extend rallies exposed movement patterns, how her mental resilience prevented momentum swings from spiraling, and in the aftermath, the broader narrative of generational transition resurfaced, because tennis has always evolved through bold challenges from rising stars who refuse to accept hierarchy as permanent, and this match added another chapter to that timeless cycle, reminding everyone that dominance must be defended relentlessly and that hunger can be just as powerful as history. And while Kazakhstan processed the shock of seeing their champion pushed beyond comfort, there was also admiration for the spectacle itself, for the quality of shot-making, for the drama that reaffirmed why the sport commands global devotion. And as interviews unfolded, Eala spoke with humility yet unmistakable confidence, crediting preparation and belief, acknowledging the caliber of her opponent, yet subtly signaling that this was not a fluke, but a glimpse of her evolving potential. And Rybakina, in turn, demonstrated professionalism, emphasizing the fine margins that separate victory from defeat, acknowledging areas for adjustment, and reinforcing that elite competition demands constant adaptation. And as highlights replayed the defining rallies over and over, the image of that fearless backhand down the line became emblematic of the entire encounter, a visual metaphor for daring to redirect destiny, and the ripple effects extended into future tournament projections, seeding discussions about rankings, momentum, psychological edges in potential rematches. Because once a rising player proves she can challenge the elite, the aura shifts permanently. And for Eala, that shift meant future opponents would no longer see her as merely promising but as dangerous, a competitor capable of seizing pivotal moments under crushing pressure. And for Rybakina, it served as a reminder that supremacy in modern tennis requires relentless refinement, that the chasing pack studies every pattern, hunts every vulnerability, and that even the slightest dip in focus can alter outcomes dramatically. And ultimately, what made this clash unforgettable was not simply the result, but the narrative arc it embodied, the collision of expectation and audacity, the drama of a packed stadium oscillating between certainty and disbelief, the human emotions etched across faces as points swung back and forth, the symbolic resonance of youth challenging established order. And long after the final handshake, the echoes of that battle lingered, fueling debates, inspiring dreams, and reinforcing the beautiful unpredictability that defines professional tennis at its highest level. Because on that day, the entire tennis world watched a fearless young contender stand toe-to-toe with a world number 3 and refused to blink. And in doing so, she did more than shock Kazakhstan. She announced to everyone paying attention that a new chapter was being written, one bold swing at a time.